we are gathering a couple of times today to give more information and field any questions that folks may have about our upcoming Building a Culture of Reparations intensive course for faith communities. And so thank you so much for joining us. We're going to be doing this session again at 7:30 this evening for folks who couldn't make it during the day. So we welcome you into this conversation. We are here to answer your questions, give you a little bit more information about the content of the course, etc. So thank you so much for joining us. We are, as you can see, recording this session so that those who could not attend today will still be able to take advantage of this conversation and get the information that they need. So I want to first tell you a little bit about how we got here and introduce some colleagues and comrades who are in the room who can say more about it. Let me just name that one of the things that Faith-Based Interfaith Affairs does is manage the Mayor's Advisory Commission on Faith-Based and Interfaith Affairs. And it is that advisory commission that is leading the work of building a faith-based movement for reparations here in Philadelphia. So I am just thrilled to be in community and serving in leadership with our commissioners. We have the co-chair of our commission here, Lucy Duncan, who will say more in a moment. But that commission has been, for the better part of 2 years, building the infrastructure, laying the groundwork, and hosting public conversations about reparations and the moral mandate that we have to repair and redress here in Philadelphia. So this has been a long time coming. We've wanted to have a moment to bring faith leaders together over a few days to not only train them and build their consciousness around reparations, but to also support them as they make concrete plans for doing reparations in their faith communities. And so now here we sit ready to host you next January. I'm going to turn it over to, as I said, our commission co-chair, Lucy Duncan, who can say a little bit more about the work that her congregation is doing around reparations and how it inspired this work that we're trying to do more broadly in the city. So Lucy, go right ahead.
Hi, everybody. I just talked for the first time. Good afternoon. So, yes, we are really grateful that you're here and grateful that you're going to participate in helping us build this movement for the vision of faith-based reparations in the city, to really do some deep wealth redistribution, as well as do the aspects of the spirit and relationship that are really elemental to reparations work, and to really work for healing and repair across the city. So I am a member of Green Street Friends meeting at Germantown. And for several years, starting, I believe, with Mike Brown's murder, we started conversations about race and racism and how it operates in society, and did some actions, supported some Black organizations, et cetera, but we're really not moving as deeply as we could in alignment with our values and the principles and our deepening understanding over time. And so we realized in the process of needing to renovate our meeting house that we had a pretty big reserves, unrestricted reserves. And we're like, wait, are we using these treasures that we have in alignment with our beliefs, and particularly in alignment with our anti-racist principles? And so we started at that time. I helped to found a reparations committee in the meeting, and we worked for a while. And our first approach was sort of to find reparations projects that the meeting might support. And in doing that, that just wasn't working. And particularly after George Floyd was murdered, there was a deepening desire for us to really bring a proposal forward. And so at that point, we're like, well, really what we need to do is commit to reparations, commit these funds to reparations, and then figure out what to do with them. And so we did a process of educating the full meeting, talking about what reparations is. We shared a video by Miss Kimberly Jones talking about the generational impact of wealth of stolen labor and stolen wealth from the Black community. And then we shared a tool about budgeting for reparations, where if you are complicit or have privilege, that really you should be spending about 50% of your discretionary funds, maybe more, but at least 50% on reparations. And for that meeting, that meant $50,000 a year. And so then we sort of said, this is what it would mean. And then we brought a proposal to the meeting. And in that, of budgeting $50,000 a year for 10 years towards reparations, with the Black members of the meeting getting to discern how that was going to be used. And in that meeting, we talked about the patterns of white supremacy around money and around holding money that will emerge. And we invited people to sort of notice that in themselves, but also if they had any problem with what we were proposing, to really speak their truth so that we could really metabolize that. And in that meeting, the meeting approved as a collective, budgeting $50,000 for 10 years, so $500,000 towards reparations. And the Black members have a get together and talk about what they think would be good projects for that. And we have Gabrielle James, who is part of the reparations committee, who's worked in housing for years, was like, well, one possibility, and in the Philadelphia area, tangled titles are a huge issue. $1 billion of wealth are bound up in unclear deeds with Black homeowners. And so we're like, well, this would be a space that we could really make a significant impact and really support the retention of Black wealth, and can pay fines and utility bills, past utility bills and things like that, in order to support people holding on to their homes. And so we did that last year. We did that from January until June. And because of the COVID surge, we started just online with people submitting their requests. And then we had a number of clinics, and ended up helping 80 families retain their home through wills and through other things, and also supporting these fines. And we're in discernment to figure out what we're going to do next. We may continue with that. And I think it's been deeply enlivening and changed the community a lot to participate in this as a whole, and it's also really beginning to change and more deeply change our relationship with the Black neighborhood in which the congregation is situated. So it's been a very powerful project to be a part of. And in the context of the Mayor's Commission, it's like, well, what would happen if we had 100 congregations in the Philadelphia, white majority congregations, in partnership with Black congregations, called in, invited to do this work with a real sense of us working in community and in relationship to redistribute wealth initially through the faith community. And then I'm a fellow for the Truth Telling Project. Dave Ragland and Melinda Salazar, who are the co-directors, are here going to talk about the course. And so we're like, let's invite the Truth Telling Project, who does a course, who's developed a curriculum for faith communities, to come to the city and do the first in-person version of their course with Philadelphia faith leaders and congregants to really stoke that movement. So we're really, really excited that they're going to be there. And then on the fourth day, the Mayor's Commission people are going to, we will be leading a session more deeply investigating case studies of faith communities in particular, and supporting you all in making a plan to do reparations with your congregation. Did I forget anything, Reverend Naomi?
I think you got it. I want to draw the attention of our guests to the chat, where I have placed a link to an Inquirer article about Green Street's reparations work. right? So we are inspired by the fact that the faith-based reparations are already being, the reparations work is already being done here in Philadelphia. Green Street is a model, a leader, and we want to build on their work to, again, inspire 100 congregations, majority white congregations, to do the same. So that article is there. And then I'm going to paste another link. Yes, so the Billy Penn article, I was going to paste that one. So good. Thank you, Lucy. Billy Penn also covered Green Street's reparations work. I'm going to also paste an Inquirer article about a revival for reparations that the commission hosted this past June, as we connected the theme of Juneteenth and freedom, sort of this notion that freedom is not yet complete, to the work of reparations, the repair work that still has to be done in order for us to be reconciled community. So you can read about what's already been happening as you consider whether or not movement. Okay, I don't know why pasting is taking so long, but Lucy, can you hear me?
You're cutting out a little bit. Now you're frozen, I think.
Okay, if you can hear me, move us to the next part. I'm not sure my computer is
Happy to do that.
frozen.
So I'm going to talk about the course and the sense of, like, in order to really be doing this together in community, there's a period of preparation. And I'm sure that some of you have a variety of experiences or understandings about reparations. And we're going to be, during this course, you'll get to share some of that with each other. So I believe we will learn a lot from each other. But to really understand the dimensions of reparations and how it's been used and the history, and also the sort of case for reparations, one of the things that Green Street delved into a little bit was particularly the Quaker case for reparations, the fact that William Penn was the first enslaver in Philadelphia, and also that Quakers were the initiators, one of the initiators of the creation of the penitentiary system. So so also having a sense of what's our complicity that we really do need to work to repair is part of that. So we're in partnership with the Truth Telling Project, and we have the course. The main fees for the course have actually been provided as a reparations project by a group called White Men for Racial Justice. They were like, this seems like a really great way to support the movement. And so they have raised most of the funds to do that. But we are asking for a facilities fee and some support paying for lunch for you all for registrants. So it's $100 per person. And we really, really want people to come from congregations in pods of 2 to 3 and teams that will be working ongoingly together inside your congregation. So for a group of 2 to 5 people, we're charging $300 for that, for a full-time 4-day course. We're really grateful for that White Men for Racial Justice saw this as an opportunity for reparations to support the Black leadership in moving this forward. So without further delay, I'm going to introduce Dave Ragland and Melinda Salazar, who are co-directors of the course and co-directors of the Truth Telling Project and co-creators of this course. And they're going to tell you a little bit about the content of the first 3 days.
Sure. Hi. It's a pleasure to be here and pleasure to meet you all, and a pleasure to be involved in this work. And I think it makes sense just to share a little bit about why we started this course. And we first, I think Lucy mentioned a little bit, but we started as a project to work on truth commissions, particularly a truth commission around police violence in Ferguson. And that work really led us to the work with reparations, and initially with Fellowship of Reconciliation, Truth Telling Project, Restorative Justice for Oakland Youth, and NCOBRA and other groups started the For Truth and Reparations campaign. And that morphed into the Grassroots Reparations campaign work, which the Truth Telling Project has taken over. And right at the beginning of this new iteration of the work, which really emerged because we saw a close connection between reparations and spirituality. And when we launched that work in 2019, it was, right at 400 years since Black people have been here. And there were so many other dates, like the 50th anniversary of the Black Manifesto, demanding religious traditions and congregations that they owe reparations, given their impact on slavery, discrimination. And we worked with religious leaders from around the country, like Rabbi Lynn, who's one of the first women rabbis in Jewish history, with Reverend Angel Kyoto Williams, who's a well-known Buddhist priest practitioner, and others, to really think about building a culture of reparations. And that involved Reparations Sabbath, Sunday, where congregations across the country are engaging in what does it mean to remember and to repair as a part of our spiritual practice. And as reparations is deeply connected in so many different spiritual practices. And so the course was based on this particular work and the need to not just have the Reparations Sundays, but to have in-depth conversations and learnings from folks who are reparations experts in different areas from around the country. So the course really begins with the spiritual roots and the theologies of reparations. And one of the people who speak to that is Willard Lett, who is one of the Universalist Unitarians leads for the Northeast, which in other traditions might be a bishop, along with the history of reparations. And we hear from Willard again and Lottie Dula, who runs a website called Reparations for Slavery, and does a deep analysis of the historical connection between slavery, discrimination, and repair. And then we look at the theories around reparations, which include decoloniality. And one of the scholars who talks about that is Dr. Lee Sumter, who also talks about Afrofuturism, and she's from Philly and lives in Philly, in addition to Brian Connolly and Medria Evans, who write a really important article called The Psychological Case for Reparations. And then we move from that to current movements around reparations and cases for reparations in particular cities. So we look at Chicago, we look at Savannah, we look at Evanston, we look at California, Bruce Beach. And then the final aspect of the course is how do we build a culture of reparations in our own communities, and what is our role in reparations? And we hear from folks who are doing wealth redistribution, and we also hear from folks who are creating truth processes, which also involve reparations. And so this course is really aimed at folks who are needing to connect various aspects of thinking that go into reparations, so that it makes sense for them and for their congregations, and gives examples in real time of what's happening.
Melinda, do you want to add anything? Thank you, Dave.
I want to apologize. I'm not in a position to show my video. One of the things that I would like to add, thank you, Dave, for sharing that, is one of our hopes is that as people take the course, that they will then move into their communities and to continue growing the seeds that we've been planting throughout communities to continue the movement of growing reparations and building a culture of reparations, and being able to understand the way in which we're working on a culture that is founded on values and principles, and how we treat one another and how we recreate the world that we want to see in the future.
And I might just quickly add, thank you, Amanda, that the pedagogical approach, or the way that we teach this course, is also not just like a rote kind of, this is this, this is this. Like we're really focused on how do we engage this from our bodies. And we engage in a lot of somatic and meditative practices, and various ways of entering this world. So really excited to see you all in person, and you all should know that this course is also going to be taught at Harvard Divinity School. So lots of communities are asking for this, and I think that the work that's happening in Philadelphia is going to be an example for the rest of this country.
We are so glad to be in community and in partnership with the Truth Telling Project, with Dave and with Melinda. You know, it's just extraordinary to feel, especially during this season of pandemic, connected and tethered to other people doing meaningful work, that we're not in it by ourselves. And that's part of the message that we want to make sure to reinforce during this 4 days together. And by that same token, the fourth day of the intensive, as Lucy referred to, will be a time where we can set up the structure of community and accountability with each other. So Truth Telling Project folks are going to come in. You're going to hear from some extraordinary speakers. You're going to do some extraordinary work with the Truth Telling Project. And then we will sit together as a Philadelphia faith movement, thinking about how we contextualize this work for our city, and how you can build a plan to do reparations like Green Street has done in your specific faith community. What are the barriers to doing this? What are the opportunities in doing this here in Philadelphia right now? We're going to hear from other faith leaders who have done this work around the country in cities like Philadelphia, cities like Baltimore, cities like Chicago, Chicago suburbs. We're going to hear directly from them. So again, we want to build the support mechanisms that we need to be able to do this work. We won't end our support after the fourth day either. What we plan to do is continue to engage you for at least 3 months out. After the intensive, we want to make sure we're checking in with you, making sure that we're providing additional resources as you need them, making sure that there's a way you can give us information about how things are going after 1 month, after 2 months, after 3 months, right? We want to make sure that we're perhaps introducing you to tools and concepts that you don't have already or you're not implementing already, but that you can keep doing it after we leave each other's presence. So we're going to be in person January 9th through 12th, that 4 days, 3 of those days with the Truth Telling Project folks, and the last day with the Mayor's Commission folks, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. each day. Lucy just put that information in the chat. The registration link is also in the chat. So if you know right now, yes, this is all I needed to hear, we want to go ahead and sign our congregation up, you can do that. And if you still have more questions, we'll be back here at 7:30 tonight to engage a community of interested people. Or you can email me, Reverend Naomi, at faithphl@phila.gov, and I'll put that email address in the chat too, faithphl, faithful, at phila.gov with your questions. I think maybe we can pause now to see if people have questions that they want to surface by going off of mute or putting in the chat.
Reverend Naomi, do you want to talk a little bit about our intent, or Dave, about the intentionality around, sometimes people think that the learning about reparations is really going to be focused more on white people and white congregations, and how we're really intentionally structuring this so that Black congregations who are interested in making reparative demands will be deeply like that it will be very inclusive, the way that we're going to be doing this. Do you want to say anything more about that?
Go ahead.
Yes, I think that's a really important point to make. I think it's important to center the communities that are most impacted as we think about like what are people mind. And the True Telling Project has been in grassroots reparations, has been in conversations with communities around the country around particularly like what is the reparations narrative, but not just narrative, that you know, how are people thinking about reparations, but then also the work that we've been doing has been centering traditional African spiritualities, the importance of our ancestors in this journey too. So it's not just you know, Eurocentric or Christianity, Judaism, not just the traditional religions that we hear about in spiritualities. So it's really important that we from the beginning name that while people are doing this work, it's important to center impacted communities and impacted ideas and faith frameworks.
And I would just add that, you know, one of the ways that we want to engage Black congregations is around the hard work of sort of identifying what will it take for repair, right? So, you know, within the context of, say, personal relationships, friendships, intimate relationships, you know, each person gets to set the terms, right, necessary for repairing harm when it happens in those relationships, right? There isn't a one size fits all. Sometimes repair can be done in short order, and sometimes repair takes a lifetime, right? So we'll be getting into that, talking about the content of repair, right? The content of reconciliation, right? And we'll also be, I think, talking to Black congregations about what it means to articulate the demand for reparations, right? How do you approach? One of the congregations I have in mind that we're going to bring forward in this course is a congregation, Black congregation in Evanston, Illinois, right outside of Chicago, that was invited into a reparations or reparative conversation with a white congregation in that same community that realized it needed to do reparations specifically directed at this Black congregation, right? So what does it mean for the Black congregation to respond to such an invitation, right? How can Black communities begin to demand that repair happens in concrete ways? So we want to make clear that we know that there are nuanced conversations to be had and distinct conversations to be had, depending on a congregation's social location, right? Depending on that congregation's heritage, right? So we know that there are different conversations for different congregations, and we want to get into the particulars of that during this course.
So anybody else have questions? Or comments, anything you want to say?
Hi, everybody. My name is Rashida Hastings. I'm here in Philadelphia. Really excited about what I'm hearing, and I definitely plan on attending. In trying to remain present and thinking of folks that I can send this out to, there's a couple of folks that come to mind immediately. They're not in my congregation, but they're in our organization, and then we're also a part of the National Black Presbyterian Caucus. Is there any chance for those who might not be able to attend tonight's information session, is there any chance that we could just forward this video so that they can get it and we can get them on board if they're interested?
Absolutely, absolutely. We're recording this. And so as soon as the recording does what it does and finishes, I'll be able to generate a link to that recording, and we'll send that out to everybody who registered. So you'll get that link, and then feel free to forward that link to whomever you think could benefit from watching it.
Wonderful, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
There's a question from Tamara. Can you expound on what reparations look like?
Well, I mean, I think that we have seen just in this conversation how it could look differently depending on the community involved, depending on the context. Green Street had, budgetary opportunities to consider making significant financial reparations in Germantown. And they, through the deliberative process led by their Black members, decided to invest financially. I think that there are other forms of reparations as well. I mean, one of the, it's not a faith-based reparations example, but Chicago has also been really innovative in terms of institutional reparations. The Chicago Police Department, for example, has initiated a reparations process to repair the harm and the broken trust between the police department and the community. That work was the result of deliberation about how the actions of one or a few of police officers who really tormented members of the community impacted the whole of the Black community in Chicago. And so that's going to involve programmatic reparations, financial investment, right? So I think reparations can take different forms depending on the communities involved. And the Truth Telling Project does a wonderful job of describing the history of reparations, the forms it can take. And what we really want is people to walk away perhaps inspired to think creatively and imaginatively about what reparations can look like in your local context. So it includes financial investment and more. We are only limited by our imagination. And I'm inspired to say that, particularly after engaging some of Dr. David's work around expanding imaginatively our understanding of reparations. I see Donald has asked a question about is whether or not this is open to non-Philadelphia residents. Yes, and we outside of the Metro Philly region, so if we're talking about folks in other states, I want people to feel like they're included and this is a meaningful conversation. We are going to contextualize this work, particularly on that fourth day, for this Metro Philadelphia region. right? So certainly the 5 counties surrounding Philadelphia are part of that metro region. I think even southern New Jersey and parts of Delaware are part of that region too. So we're going to be thinking regionally, but we welcome anybody who's interested in doing this work. Lucy, am I right about that?
Yes.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
got an inquiry from a Quaker meeting that's further away, but is really sort of affiliated with Philadelphia. So the vision is to really have it be a Philadelphia focused approach, but yes, people are really welcome to join us. And Dave, do you want to say anything more about the question about reparations, what reparations looks like? Do you have any other things you want to add, or do we do it all right? Do we do all right?
I think you did a good job. I think it's really important that, to think about, the piece that helped me the most was learning about the UN framework for reparations of compensation, which we all hear about, but then there's also healing, which looks at like, how do we heal from trauma that has occurred in so many different areas, from spiritually to the body, the trauma that's in our bodies, and mental illness. And then the other dimensions include satisfaction, which is truth-telling and hearing about the trauma and communities teaching other communities about what happened to them. And then the creation of memorials. For instance, we've been involved in work in Savannah to change the name of Calhoun Square. Beneath Calhoun Square is an African burial ground. So this like insult upon injury, and that just happened. And that's reparative. Changing names of streets, removals of Confederate memorials. And then there's restitution, the return of land and property that was stolen. And we see that in Bruce Beach, California, where not just during enslavement periods, but afterwards, many Black people were pushed off of land. Entire part of Forsyth County was Black people were pushed out by the KKK. And that those same activists in Savannah are addressing that as we speak. And then there is guarantees of non-repeat, which to me is one of the most important and spiritual parts of reparations, because it's not just about changing your behavior, but it's unraveling yourself from systems that perpetuate harm. And we're implicated in harm for people in this community by, who's invested in things that result in incarceration of people, weapons manufacturers that find weapons that find themselves on our communities. And so I think reparations is about building and the unraveling, and I think addressing a fundamental broken human covenant between people and our planet. And given that slavery changed the entire face of this land, and that's contributing to climate change in this particular moment. So we're here to help heal this broken covenant, and reconnect people in a state of normal relations. And that's ultimately what repair has to be. And that's fundamental for this country, given how disconnected we are, and that we can't see reparations as something that can bring about accountability for our past harm, and moving forward in ways that don't reproduce that same violence.
Thanks, Dave.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I see Denise Anderson's question about whether people, or how on board should people be with the notion of reparations before coming to this course. I want to pivot that over back to Dave and Melinda, having taught this course with many different kinds of people before, I will just say, having taken the course myself, you know, I think that one should come to this experience open to hearing about the need for reparations. One should come open. If one is already convinced that this is not, you know, we shouldn't have to worry about what happened 250 years ago, and if one is closed to the notion of reparations, including financial reparations, and one is closed to thinking explicitly about race, explicitly about the harm that has been enacted upon Black folk in particular in America, then this will be frustrating, if not offensive to a person like that. Truth Telling Project tells the truth, right, about the racialized history of this country. And so one has to come with an openness. I will just say it that way. Don't have to be an expert on reparations, but one has to come with openness. That's my view as one who has taken the course. Dave and Melinda, you want to add anything to that?
We just agree with that and say, like, this for folks who've done a little bit of work already.
Thank you, Dave. See, I didn't want to say that, but thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
What I would add to that is coming from the environmental sustainability and the peace community. We don't know what those concepts look like. We're living in a nation, we're living in a world where those concepts have yet to emerge. These are emergent ideas. And so we are all learners here. There are no experts. This is a community grassroots initiative, and we are all learners and all the creator of our own knowing and knowledge. And so we're all on the same page here, walking in this journey, this spiritual journey together.
And if somebody wants to come and argue that reparations is a problem and not a good thing to do, that won't be a good look for anybody. So yes, Melinda. And there's another question from Lance, who asked, can people from different organizations or as individuals who are otherwise connected register as a group? So I want to be clear that this is like really like faith focused. That's our intent and that's our goal. And that I think that the sense of the pods is if you're able to apply this in the context that you're coming from collectively, like if you're able to work inside whatever organization or collective that you share to do something together with that collective, then yes, of course, you'd be welcome. We are partnering with Interfaith Philadelphia, who is co-sponsoring this. Really grateful for their enthusiasm about what we're doing. And they are sending a group from Interfaith Philadelphia. Yeah, I don't know if you know that, Lance, but they are bringing a group from the leadership of that organization to the course. So yes, and our vision is that you'll be able to work in a common context to make change around reparations.
Is Power Interfaith also going to be involved here?
They agreed to a while ago, but we're still reaching out to them and figuring that out. And we did just hear about where it's going to be hosted. If you want to know, Rodef Shalom is going to host us for the days of the course.
We're really thrilled about that. Yes. Centrally located, accessible via SEPTA, sort of decentering Christianity, which I will say was important, is an important part of this, that we actually live into radical inclusion. So I'm just thrilled that we just got that good news during this conversation. So yes, I'm sorry, Lucy, I cut you off.
No, you didn't. It's fine.
Okay.
And Dory asks if she'd love to learn more examples of reparations, if there are additional resources or articles to read. One thing that you might look up is that Dave has written a series of articles. I don't know how many for Yes Magazine,
Yes.
which is an incredible resource. And if you want to read that before those set of articles, we heard from one of the organizers who Dave heard from an organizer of the Bruce Beach reparations that she had been inspired by some of Dave's writings. So
Dave's writings are on my syllabi. So yes, I want to co-sign these Yes Magazine articles, a wonderful series that push us again beyond the same old conversations about reparations, which box us in to these narrowly defined projects and pushes us to really use our moral imagination. So yes, there it is. Yep. I was going to say, if I can find the articles, go ahead and go to that link. Also, Lucy, if you Lucy put in the chat, if you scroll up further, a PDF of the Movement for Black Lives, part of their toolkit on reparations. And there are some case studies in there to read, to consider, some definitions, the UN definition that Dave referenced earlier, right? So I just encourage you to go to that link too and poke around in their toolkit. You can find lots of good stuff there too.
And Rashida, I saw you raising your hand. Do you have something else you want to say?
I was giving a thumbs up to the Yes Magazine and Dave Ragland.
Great, good, great. Yeah, we couldn't be like, this is like in the company of more skilled and wise people in doing this work. So we're very lucky to be engaged in this way. Any other questions or comments? Before we close, I wanted to tell you a story about the legacy of this call. Obviously, the call for reparations is as old as slavery and the theft of land. So it's not anything new. But I did want to say that in 1969, Muhammad Kenyatta and with other people, SNCC and the Black Panthers got together and had this Black Economic Conference. And they had a call to faith communities to be leaders around reparations. And there's actually a little bit, there's a great video that I found of Muhammad Kenyatta and a panel of people around that time working with people, with folks. And one of the things that they did is they reached out to Quakers, thinking that Quakers in the region would be an easy win. And there was a long conversation among friends, and it turned out that that Quakers paid only one monthly meeting paid $5,000 in reparations. The call was for $500,000 to start, with a call for $5 million over time. And the yearly meeting minuted a commitment to $100,000 of reparations, and I don't think that the yearly meeting has paid those. So like this is an old demand and an obligation that is really old, and I think it's really time to equip ourselves to really respond to that call, that really, really deep call.
Much for that, Lucy. There's one other question in the chat that we might can address before we go. I want to pitch that over to Dave and Melinda. Are there examples in the curriculum, in the course, for how emotional healing or embodied healing constitutes reparations as well?
Sure. I think one of the big pieces in the psychological case for reparations deals with white guilt, and looking at white guilt as part of not just among individuals, but a collective pattern that emerge as a result of lingering ghosts, right, in our society, like the institutions that colonized this land and built this country are still with us. Slavery is still with us. And so there's guilt And so what the author suggests and the people who are going to talk to us during the course argue is that there has to be dealing with that guilt and transforming that guilt of ghosts into ancestors that we can live with. And the way that we transform that is a reconnection to land and spirituality, but also beginning with reparative relationships, also forgiving ourselves. And part of that work is that unraveling ourselves and our self-worth being connected to whiteness. So I think there's a whole lot there that deals with guilt. And some of the people who talk to us, and particularly those who talk to who speak in the course about transfer, talk specifically about dealing with that. Not just like dealing with the guilt of having inherited money, enslavement, or being the downs of their race or their family connections, but even the harm that comes from the people next to them who don't agree with what they do. So there's a lot to deal with, and a lot of people who've invested a lot of time into actually acting on these principles and these values and these awakenings that have occurred in our movements and various experiences that we have.
And I'll just add briefly to that one of the ways that we're going to be thinking about how Black congregations too can see healing as part of this repair work is to think about, think about sort of the recovery of joy, think about the often fraught process of genealogical work as we try to reclaim the histories that were snatched from us or hidden from us, right? What are the ways we can remain whole as we stir up some stuff, as we acknowledge some stuff about our heritage and about our history. So yes, healing all the way around, as Lucy just said, for everybody who engages in this kind of liberative work. Absolutely. All right. Well, it is 1 minute to 1, and we don't want to keep you longer than you plan to be here. Great conversation, great questions. Again, we recorded this. We will make the link available to you. We'll host another info session tonight at 7:30 for those who prefer that time. And if we have to do another one before the course, we will. We want to make sure that people have all the information they need so that they can make a wise decision about this kind of investment. We want to see you there January 9th through 12th, 2023. So spread the word, and we'll be in touch with you. We'll be in touch with you. Please do be in touch with us if you need us, okay? Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you to Lucy and Dave and Melinda. I also see Commissioner Donald Camp here as well. So thank you, Don, for coming. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody.
Bye. Great. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.